I spent 10 years building my father's retail empire, 70-hour weeks, no vacations. He fired me. Your brother does it better. I gave my 20s to my father's dream. 10 years of 70-hour weeks, no vacations, no holidays. The kind of work that turns a name on a building into a living, breathing machine. I built his retail empire from the stockroom floor up. Every report, every supply deal, every dollar that passed through his hands first ran through mine. And then one Tuesday morning, under the flicker of the same fluorescent lights I'd replaced 3 times, he walked in with my younger brother at his side and fired me, no warning, no argument. Just 6 words that would split my life clean down the middle. Your brother does it better than you. The words hit harder than they should have. I thought I'd built armor thick enough to handle anything. The long nights, the silent expectations, the family hierarchy that never had room for error. But that morning, standing in store number 1, the flagship, I realized I'd been playing a game where the rules only applied to me. The air in that office felt too thin to breathe. The smell of citrus floor cleaner clung to everything. My coffee, untouched, was cooling on a pile of invoices I'd stayed late to reconcile. The beeping of the forklift out back echoed through the open warehouse door. Steady, mechanical, mocking. My father didn't even sit down. He kept his coat on, hands buried in his pockets like he wasn't planning to stay long. My brother Liam leaned against the wall with that easy smirk, the one that always came right before something bad. "Morning," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I've updated the cash flow sheet. We need to push the flooring project a month." Dad didn't look at the report. He looked at my shirt like it was the problem. "You always have a reason to stop things," he said. I wanted to tell him reasons were what kept the lights on. Instead, I nodded. "I have reasons grounded in math," he waved toward Liam. "Your brother gets it done. You drag, you nitpick, you make people nervous." The words slid off his tongue like they'd been rehearsed. Maybe they had. My jaw tightened. "Nervous is better than bankrupt," I said. He smiled then, that polite managerial smile he used for staff he was about to replace. "Sean," he said quietly, "you've had your chance." My stomach dropped. Liam folded his arms. "We're going for a growth mindset, man. You're not a growth guy." The hum of the lights above us seemed louder. Somewhere in the back, a box hit the floor. I could feel the moment cracking open like the second before glass shatters. "You're done," my father said. "As of today." I laughed, reflex. "Very funny." He didn't blink. "Turn in your keys." It was a simple instruction, but it carried the weight of 10 years. 10 years of canceled vacations. 10 years of explaining away pay delays. 10 years of believing loyalty was a form of love. I stared at him. I wanted to ask why, even though I already knew. I wanted to remind him of the time I caught the accounting error that would have cost the company 6 figures. Or how I kept payroll running when Liam forgot to submit supplier orders. Or how I'd worked through the flu because no one else could handle the quarterly close. But none of that mattered. He just said, "Your brother does it better." The words landed with the dull finality of a door slamming shut. Liam rolled a coin across his knuckles and smirked. "Wow," I said finally. "So that's it." Dad nodded at the office door. "Keys, laptop, passcode." I felt my mouth open, then close again. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't sound like begging. I handed over the keys. My hands didn't shake until I stepped outside. The sunlight was too bright. The air too sharp. I got in my car, stared at the steering wheel, and tried to remember how to breathe. 10 years, 70-hour weeks, no vacations. And in the end, all I got was one sentence and a parking lot full of silence. That was the day I learned. Hadn't been building a legacy. I'd been building my own replacement. I didn't stumble into my father's company. I was drafted. I was 12 when I first started working in the stockroom of our family's first store. Summers meant dust, cardboard cuts, and the hum of fans that only half worked. My friends spent their vacations at the lake. I spent mine learning how to count inventory by touch in the dark when the power went out. Dad used to say, "A family business builds men faster than it builds profits." I believed him. I thought long hours meant legacy. That being exhausted meant being worthy. Mom made it sound noble. "You're lucky," she'd say, packing me sandwiches with store-brand mustard. "You're learning responsibility. Your father trusts you." She didn't mention that trust came with no pay. By 16, I could read the rhythm of sales reports like other kids read lyrics. I knew which vendors were bluffing, which customers were lying, and which promises from my father would quietly disappear by the next quarter. He'd pat my shoulder and say, "Someday this will all be yours," and like a fool, I believed him. Liam, my younger brother, was the opposite of me. He had charm, the kind that filled rooms before he even spoke. Where I tracked numbers, he told stories. Where I stayed late to fix problems, he created them and somehow still got thanked for his creativity. At home, Mom used to narrate our differences like a bedtime story. "You're the smart one," she'd say to me, sliding a bowl of potatoes across the dinner table. "Liam's the natural leader. Teams need both." Her smile meant don't argue. Dad loved that dynamic. He could pit us against each other and call it motivation. When Liam forgot to order signage for the new store launch, I stayed up 3 nights designing, printing, and mounting every single display. He took the photo at the ribbon cutting. At 21, while my college friends were learning how to build resumes, I was learning how to build margins. Dad offered me a position, operations analyst, the kind that came with no title bump and less pay than a store manager, but a future if you prove yourself. 5 years, he'd said. Help us get stable, then you can do anything you want. 5 years turned into 10, and during those 10 years, the business didn't just grow. I did everything to make it grow. I negotiated with suppliers who called me Junior on Monday and Sir by Friday. I rewrote payroll models, cleaned up our tax inconsistencies, and saved the company from fines twice. Dad took the credit, of course. He'd stand at banquets with Liam on one side and me on the other, saying, "Couldn't do it without my boys." Then, when the checks came late or the bonuses disappeared, he'd say, "We're a family, not a corporation. Family sacrifices." I thought that was loyalty. Turns out it was control. There were moments I should have seen it coming. When Liam's salary suddenly jumped 20% and I was told he's client-facing. When Dad had me sign a routine banking document that turned out to make me guarantor on a credit line. When Mom told me, "You worry too much. Your father has everything handled," but worry was my job. I was the safety net, the dependable one, and dependable people don't question orders. They just work harder. I started sleeping in my office chair during closing weeks, setting alarms every 2 hours to check shipment updates. I ate dinner from vending machines and told myself I was earning trust. Meanwhile, Liam was out there shaking hands, giving interviews, smiling for cameras that I wasn't invited to stand in front of. I'd hear Mom's voice in my head. "You're the smart one. He's the leader." And somehow, I made peace with that lie. I told myself maybe someday Dad would see me, really see me. Not as the fixer, not as the quiet one, but as the man who held the walls up when everyone else let them crack, but he never did. And on that Tuesday morning, when he fired me with my brother standing beside him, I realized the truth that had been waiting under every spreadsheet, every late night, every fake promise of legacy. It was never about who worked hardest. It was about who looked like him when they smiled. The weeks after I was fired blurred together. Quiet, humiliating, sleepless. The kind of days where the world still spins but you've fallen off. People think betrayal feels like a scream. It doesn't. It feels like silence that doesn't end. Mom called the next morning. "Your father is hurt," she said softly, like he was the one bleeding. "You shouldn't have made it so hard for him." Liam's stepping up now. Be supportive, supportive. I bit my tongue until I tasted metal. Supportive was the word she used when Dad forgot to pay me overtime. When Liam wrecked a delivery van and I took the blame because he's young. He'll learn. I gave him 10 years, I said quietly. She sighed. "Don't be dramatic, Sean. You'll land on your feet." "You always do. That was the problem. I always did. And they knew it." I spent the next few days packing my desk. Not the one in the flagship store, that had already been cleared, but the small one in my apartment, cluttered with half-written budgets and old receipts from dinners I'd paid for, on behalf of the company. Every item felt heavier than it should have. Not because of what it was, a mug, a photo, a cracked calculator, but because of what it represented. Time I'd never get back. The family group chat stayed busy without me. Liam posted a photo in Dad's chair captioned, "Day 1. Let's build something new." Mom commented, "So proud of both my boys." No one noticed I'd left the chat. I told myself to let it go, but every time I closed my eyes I heard Dad's voice. calm, managerial, rehearsed. You've had your chance. What he didn't know was that I'd already given him every chance. The longer I sat in that silence, the more things I began to see. Little memories I'd brushed off suddenly looked sharper, darker. Like the night 5 years ago when Dad had me sign a temporary refinancing document for supplier credit. Just standard procedure, he'd said, sliding it across the table while I was half asleep, mid-quarter close. I didn't read it. I trusted him. Later I found out my name had been listed as a co-signer, or the time I overheard him telling a vendor, "Sean's dependable, but he doesn't have the big picture brain." I laughed it off then. I thought he was being political. Now I realized he was laying the groundwork. My whole life had been a slow setup for my own exit. Dad's empire, the one I helped build from dust and overtime, had been expanding aggressively in recent years. Store renovations, new leases, bulk orders beyond what our cash flow could handle. I was the one who warned him to slow down. He called me negative. Liam called me scared. I called it math. And math, it turns out, doesn't care about family. The betrayal wasn't just losing my job. It was realizing they'd all been fine with me breaking so long as it kept the machine running. I'd been the tire patch holding air in their leaking business, and they only noticed me when I stopped holding. The worst part came 2 weeks later. A friend from accounting, one of the few still talking to me, sent a photo of a memo. Company restructuring. Under new leadership team, Liam's name was listed as COO. Under legacy operations support, there was a note, temporary consultancy, Sean, pending. I hadn't agreed to anything, but there it was, a lie in print. They were still using my name, my credit, my work. I called Dad, straight to voicemail. Texted. Nothing. Then a single message came back the next day. Don't make this ugly. We'll take care of you. That line, we'll take care of you, hit harder than the firing. Because I finally understood what it meant. It wasn't a promise. It was a warning. They wanted me quiet. They wanted me complicit. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to be either. I started digging through my old files, payslips, signed papers, emails. 10 years of proof that I'd carried that company while they smiled for photos, and somewhere in the middle of that sleepless investigation, I remembered something small. Something I'd forgotten about completely, an old savings account. My first one, opened when I was 13, $198 last I checked. I didn't know it yet, but that forgotten account was about to show me just how deep the betrayal went, and how much my parents had kept from me all along. The day I drove to the bank, I told myself it was just closure, one last thread to cut, a formality before I started whatever came next. The branch looked the same as it did when I was 13, pale green walls, scuffed tile, a potted plant that hadn't been watered properly in months. I could still remember walking in with my dad all those years ago, his hand heavy on my shoulder as he told the teller, "Start him early. He's going to be a businessman someday." Back then, that word, businessman, sounded like armor. Now it just sounded tired. I took a number and waited under the hum of the ceiling fans. The room smelled faintly of ink and carpet cleaner. An old couple argued quietly near the deposit slips. The kind of moment where life feels too small for how much has changed inside you. When my number flashed, I stepped up to the counter. The teller smiled politely. "Hi, I'd like to close an old savings account. It's under my name." "Of course," she said, typing. "Can I see your ID?" I slid it over. Her smile faltered as she looked at the screen. Fingers paused mid-type. "Everything okay?" I asked. She frowned. "This account, it's linked to an active stock purchase plan, has been for 20 years. I blinked. That's not possible. It was just a childhood account. She printed something, eyes scanning the paper. "It's registered to a transfer agent. Dividend reinvestment every quarter since 2005. I felt the room tilt a little. "Can you check the company name?" She hesitated. "One moment, sir." When she handed me the page, my knees nearly buckled. At the top of the statement, bold, unmistakable, was a name I knew too well, Harbor and Hearth Brands, The same parent company my father used to curse during dinner meetings. The one he claimed was a parasite on honest retailers. I stared at the page, my throat dry. Who set this up? It lists a custodian, she said, reading. Your mother until you turned 18. Then it automatically transferred fully to you. My mouth opened, but no words came out. 20 years. They'd been buying shares in a company my father publicly mocked, and they'd done it in my name. The teller printed a full summary. Pages of reinvested dividends, splits, mergers, spin-offs, patient compounding, untouched. The kind of portfolio you only get when someone planned it quietly, carefully, and for a long time. Do you want to close it or keep it active? She asked. Keep it, I said immediately. Please keep it. When I stepped outside, the sun hit me like a slap. The folder felt heavier than paper should. I sat on the curb, opened the pages again, and just stared. The numbers didn't feel real. But the anger did. They knew. All those years I was covering their shortfalls, skipping pay, floating rent, paying out of pocket for supplier deals. They knew this account existed. They watched me drown in loyalty while they let this quiet fortune grow in my name. Why? To protect it? To hide it? To control it? I didn't know which answer was worse. That night, I didn't sleep. I went through old emails, old signatures, digital archives I hadn't opened in years. I found one message from my mom dated 2017. Need you to sign this bank document, just housekeeping. Attached was a PDF I'd signed without reading because I was fixing a refrigeration failure in store number 9 at 2 a.m. The document transfer agent authorization, custodian removal. They'd moved full control of the account to me years ago. Quietly, deliberately, right around the time Dad started expanding beyond his limits. The realization hit like cold water. My safety was never for me. It was a parachute for them. I sat there in my living room at 3 a.m., folder open, the sound of my refrigerator humming like background noise to the storm in my head. I felt anger, sure, but beneath it, something worse. Grief. Grief for the version of me that still believed family and business could exist in the same sentence without one swallowing the other. They'd used my trust like an asset, filed under family dependable, and somewhere between the numbers. In the memories, I realized something else. I wasn't angry about losing my job. I was angry because I'd never had one. Not really. I'd just been the unpaid insurance policy for people who called that love. The next morning, I woke up with that folder still open beside me, pages curled at the edges from how many times I'd turned them over in disbelief. The sun was barely up, but I'd already made my decision. If they could use me for a decade without blinking, then I could face them once without fear. I called my father's assistant. Tell him I need 30 minutes, I said. She hesitated. He's booked all morning. Then tell him his guarantor is coming to talk. Silence then. He'll make time. By noon, I was sitting across from them in the same conference room where I'd spent half my life explaining balance sheets. Dad at the head of the table, arms crossed. Liam spinning lazily in a swivel chair. Mom placing a tray of muffins like this was brunch instead of reckoning. Make it quick, Dad said. We've got a distributor call in 20. I didn't bother sitting. I dropped the first stack of papers on the table. 10 years of unpaid reimbursements, bonuses delayed for family reasons, and hours logged past midnight. Each page a quiet piece of evidence that I hadn't imagined the exploitation. These are my contributions to the company, I said evenly. Expenses I covered personally, loans I made under your name, totals highlighted. Liam rolled his eyes. You're doing math again, man. Always with the spreadsheets. Dad smirked. If you came here for a severance package, forget it. You were family, not staff. I didn't respond. I dropped the second stack. This one was thinner but louder, the statements from my savings account. The Harbor and Hearth investment plan. Dad's face didn't change. Mom went pale. Liam laughed until no one else did. This was opened in my name when I was 13, I said. Custodian. Mom. Transferred fully when I turned 18. reinvested quietly for 20 years. That was a gift, Mom said quickly. We forgot to tell you. For 20 years, I asked, voice flat. Dad leaned forward, eyes cold. Watch your tone. No, I said. I've watched my tone for a decade. You watched my life. They stayed silent. I don't want your money, I continued. I'm not asking for anything from you. I'm telling you how this goes from now on. I will not co-sign debt. I will not work for free. I will not bail you out when your bad math catches up to you. Any money you say I owe you is settled. You built your empire on my labor and called it family. That contract is over. Liam snorted. You're acting like we stole from you. I slid one last paper across the table, a printed screenshot of family chat messages spanning years. Requests for help, guilt trips about doing it for family, promises of repayment that never came, all time-stamped, all theirs. Remind me, I said quietly. What's theft again? Mom's voice sharpened. You're turning on us after everything we did for you? You worked me for 10 years, I said. And you fired me because it was convenient. I believed in us. That belief is gone. Dad stood abruptly. Get out. I stood too, my folder under one arm. Gladly. His eyes darted to the folder. Leave that. It's company property. It's mine, I said, and I didn't look back when I walked out. Outside, my hand shook. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was adrenaline. For the first time in years, I'd said everything I'd swallowed. That night, the fallout began. Family chat. Sean is confused. He's under stress. We'll forgive him when he apologizes. Relatives chimed in with their favorite chorus lines. Family is hard. Business is stressful. I muted the thread and opened a new one, just for me. I called it receipts. Every time I wanted to reply, I wrote there instead. It was cleaner that way. It kept me from writing something that would feel good for 30 seconds and hurt for 30 months. Then came the private messages. Dad, bankers are calling about a covenant waiver. You'll fix the deck, right? Me. I don't work for the company. Dad, stop being petty. Liam, bro, we can still be cool. Think advisory. Retainer word. Not a lot, but something. Optics. Me. No. Mom. You're breaking your father's heart. Me. He fired me. Mom. You forced his hand. I typed one word back. When that was the first time in my life, no didn't sound like defiance. It sounded like oxygen. The days after that confrontation felt like the first breath after surfacing. Not clean, not easy, but real. I woke up without alarms for the first time in years. My body didn't know what to do with rest. Every instinct wanted to check messages, update ledgers, prove something. But there was no one left to impress. And that was the point I started therapy. The first session, the counselor asked why I looked so tired. I think I'm addicted to being useful, I said. Because it was the only way to be loved. She didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, then let's make usefulness a choice instead of a contract you never signed. I wrote that line down, underlined it twice. The Harbor and Hearth account became my strange new mirror, a symbol of everything I'd never allowed myself to have. Stability, control, quiet. I didn't touch the money. I just studied it. The history, the growth, the patience. It was proof that time, left alone, can still build something good. I spent the next few months untangling my life from theirs. I changed my email, my phone number, my address. I applied for jobs quietly, honestly, without name-dropping the family business. Turns out when you've spent a decade keeping a leaky ship afloat, recruiters notice. My first new offer came from a mid-sized company with zero glamour, spreadsheets, steady hours, boundaries, the kind of boring I'd have mocked at 22. Now it felt like freedom. During the onboarding call, my new manager said, "We don't expect people to be heroes here." Just honest, I nearly laughed. It felt like someone had opened a window I didn't know was locked. I moved into a small apartment, sunlight through real windows, a door that shut all the way. I bought a couch that didn't sag, a plant I remembered to water, and socks that actually matched. It sounds small, but when you've been living for someone else's approval, those small things are rebellion. Then, inevitably, the family tried again. Mom texted first, "We're having a dinner." Just family. No business talk. We miss you. Against my better judgment, I went. I told myself it was closure, not reconciliation. The moment I walked in, it was the same play, different act. Dad asked, "So what are you doing with your time?" "Working," I said. Liam smirked. "Where?" "Haven't seen you on LinkedIn." "You hiding?" "I'm living," I said. Sipped my water. Mom leaned forward, voice dropping to that soft, weaponized tone. "I heard you came into some money. We should talk later. Your father has an opportunity. You could help the family double, maybe triple." I set my fork down. "No," her smile faltered. "Why are you punishing us?" "I'm not," I said. "I'm protecting me." Dad scoffed. "We made you." "I made me," I said quietly, "with your last name and my labor. The only difference is I stopped confusing debt for love." Liam laughed. "You think you're a monk now?" "No," I said, standing. "Just free." I hugged my grandmother, kissed her cheek, and left my plate untouched. Outside in the parking lot, I waited for the guilt, that old, heavy tide that always dragged me back. But it didn't come. The air felt light. My chest unclenched. Over the next few months, I heard through relatives that the empire was crumbling. Vendors unpaid, stores half-stocked, signs fading. Dad called it a market shift. I called it consequence. I didn't gloat. I didn't send the links or the headlines. I just let the silence say what I never needed to anymore. You did this. Not me. One afternoon, I walked into a neighborhood cafe near my new job. The barista spelled my name wrong on the cup. I smiled and didn't correct her. I sat by the window and read for 30 minutes. Not a work report, not a balance sheet, just a book. I'd forgotten what peace sounded like. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. "You don't know me. I was in school with Liam. He used to say you were too intense. Just wanted to say that thing you did, saying no. I wish I'd said it to my dad sooner. I'm trying now." I stared at the message for a long time, then smiled. Boundaries, it turns out, are contagious. I won't pretend I woke up healed, but I learned to make peace in small transactions. A full night's sleep. A meal I didn't rush. A lock on my door that I bought for myself. I kept the harbor and hearth folder on a shelf. I open it once a month, not 10 times a day. I don't see it as money anymore. I see it as proof. Proof that even when people tried to use me as a safety net, I still built something solid, something mine. Last week, Dad called. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was polite, rehearsed. "We're restructuring. If you have time to consult. Family should stick together." He didn't ask how I was. He didn't apologize. I didn't expect him to. I saved the voicemail in a folder called Things I Don't Need to Fix. Then I went for a walk. The evening air was soft. Somewhere, a kid was selling lemonade for 50 cents. "Business good?" I asked him, handing over $1. "My dad says I'm a natural," he said proudly. "Tell him you're a hard worker," I said. "The rest is marketing," he laughed. I did too. People love stories with clean endings. Villains fall, heroes rise. But life isn't like that. The store signs will fade. Liam will post motivational quotes. Mom will call it faith. Dad will call it legacy. And me? I'll call it peace. Because for the first time in 10 years, I'm not anyone's investment. I'm my own.